A really warm welcome to this third week. This is going to be a particularly exciting week for me anyway, but for you it might just be no more or less exciting than the other 2 weeks we've already had. But today particularly, and I think I hinted at that last week, we'll look at the back, how to stabilize the muscles around the back, and how to connect to the muscles at the front, the core muscles, to create stability in the back. And this is, strengthening the core muscles at the front is essential to keeping the spine, the muscles around the spine healthy to prevent lower back issues, etc. Just like the previous weeks, we'll start in Shavasana, pretending nothing much is going on, and then we take it from there. So come to lie on your back, and you could have your feet as wide as the mat, like you would in Shavasana. And then you can have your arms also with the hands as wide as the mat, with the arms up and overhead. And we'll stretch along diagonal lines. So you could do this with the breath, but you don't have to synchronize it with the breath if that gets complicated. So you could take an inhale and point the left toes and reach up through the right fingers. And then with the exhale, relax. And then go the other side. So point the right toes, reach up through the left fingertips. And then with the exhale, relax. And with the inhale, stretch the first side. And exhale, relax. Inhale, stretching, second side. Exhale, relax. Let's do one more round. Inhaling and exhale. Breathing in, breathe out. Now, with the right hand, take an inhale, reach through the right fingertips. With the exhale, place the hand on the chest, lift the head, and slide the hand to your hip. And then inhale, reaching the arm all the way back up. And exhale, the left hand reaches to the chest and you reach for the hip, the head lifts. And then inhale, reach back. And we keep changing sides. Exhale, right hand, can you lift up a little higher, reach toward the thigh. Inhaling, come back. Exhale, left hand reaches across to the right side toward the thigh. Inhale, coming back. Go for the knee. Exhale, right hand slides toward the knee. It's not necessarily going to get harder. Some of it is going to get easier. And then exhale, left hand slides towards the knee. With the inhale, you come back. And then exhale, right hand, can you slide toward the shin, sitting up pretty tall? And then with the inhale, sliding back. And with the exhale, left hand slides across to the right shin. And then inhale, come back. Right hand to left ankle, reaching as far forward as you can. And then inhale, coming back. And exhale, left hand to right ankle and sliding all the way back. And now we change it slightly. Exhale, right hand to left ankle and then circle all the way around so that then the left hand can slide down the right leg, the right arm comes back, and you find that star shape again. And then with your next exhalation, start the journey on the other side. So left hand comes across and you come up and you reach forward, and it doesn't matter how far forward you reach. And then the right hand travels along the left leg. And then we start again with that same right hand, inhaling, lifting up and swiveling all the way around, and the right arm comes back and left arm travels along the right leg, inhaling, and with the exhale, you lift up, left hand, right leg, and take it around. And then right hand slides down the left leg. And let's do one more. Inhaling, exhaling, synchronizing this with the breath or not. Taking the very last side. And then exhale, release. Then take your arms to shoulder distance. So take the hands a little closer together and bring the feet to hip distance. Flex your feet, reach away through the heels. Now press the back of the head into the ground. Take an inhale, lift the shoulder blades and bring the lower back closer to the floor. And then exhale, release. Inhale, lower back down, lift the shoulder blades so the abdominals engage. Exhale, release. Inhale, lower back down, lift the shoulder blades. Exhale, release. Let's change the breath. Take an inhale, and then same action. Lower back down, lift the shoulder blades, lift the head, come all the way up to sit. Reach for the toes, and it doesn't matter whether you reach the toes or not. And then exhale, you can round the spine as you come back down, reach the arms up and overhead. So take an inhale and lower the lower back down, lift the shoulder blades. With the exhale, slide the arms forward and lift up to sit. It's almost like you're coming up with a tiny back bend, although that might not work and the head might well have to lift first. And then you come back down. Let's try it once more. Inhale, lower back down, lift shoulder blades, and then exhale, arms forward, sliding toward the toes, and then rolling all the way back down. And then place your feet flat on the floor and take your arms down by your side now and have your feet reasonably close with the heels to the sitting bones and maybe hip distance or shoulder distance. And just tip your pelvis forward and back a few times so that you can notice how the lower back can come closer to the floor and then moves away from the floor as you tilt the pelvis. And we're sort of playing with that a little bit, and we use our abdominals to peel the spine off the floor. So let your lower back come to the floor, press your feet down, lift the tailbone, curl up. Spine lifts vertebra by vertebra, pressing the feet down, lifting the hips a little higher, doesn't matter how high. And then with the exhale from the top vertebra to the bottom, let each vertebra come down separately and sequentially. So make it pretty hard work until lastly the lower back comes down, and then you can tip the pelvis in the other direction so the tailbone comes down and there is some space underneath the lower back. And this is what we're going with. These two movements combined. So lower back comes to the floor, lift the tailbone, peel the spine off the floor, and then from the top vertebra to the bottom vertebra, one by one, release the spine down. And once the spine is down, tip the pelvis forward a little more so the lower back comes off the ground. And then release the lower back down and start lifting the hips again. So you're rolling up and down. And you could even, as you roll down, stick your thumb to the upper back vertebra to get a sense of where to release from first. So keep going, maybe twice more in your own time. And take breaths. You don't have to synchronize this with the breath in any way. It's interesting to move slowly and therefore take several breaths in each direction. And this is, as I said, not about backbending, it's all about mobilizing the spine. And then once you come down the next time, stay down and stretch out your legs, and we'll repeat basically what we did just before. So feet hip distance, arms are up and overhead. Take an inhale and lower the lower back down, lift the shoulder blades, and with the exhale, fingers forward, lift up, sit up. This was just our mechanism to come up. And then grab whatever props you're using for the yoga bricks. So these could be actual yoga bricks, or maybe you have cans of tomatoes or some cans, or you have books. You want something that you can hold in your palms like this. And then grab a blanket and take the blanket over your shins. So the blanket needs to be folded in a way that it can be draped over the legs with the feet about hip distance. And then lie back down again once you've got that. And the arms are going to come up and overhead with your props on top of the palms. The hands, as before, about shoulder distance. Now, draw the navel down to the spine. Think about drawing the lower ribs down toward the pubic bone. Continue to breathe. Imagine the blanket and the bricks, or whatever they are heavier than they actually are, and press up into them without any need to lift the legs and the hands. So the hands stay on the floor, the heels stay on the floor, but you press up into an imaginary, much heavier weight than the weight that is actually there. And continue to draw the lower ribs down toward the pubic bone. Breathe in. And with the exhale now, lift the head and lift the hands just off the ground. And keep pressing your legs up into that extra heavy blanket. And pretty soon, everything will probably start shaking, and that's fine. Embrace that, let that happen. Now breathe in. With the exhale, slide your arms forward. Lift all ribs off the floor. So you're curling in a lot more. The lowest ribs are hovering above the ground, and you're still pressing your hands into a heavy weight. You're pressing your legs into a heavy weight. Breathe in. And then exhale, bend the knees and sit up. Draw the shoulders back. Broaden the chest. Make the spine as straight as possible rather than rounded. And this is almost a relief being here. And then still press into the heavier weight. So still imagine that the props have a heavier weight than they actually do. And then the good news is that we're only going to do it one more time. So start to extend the legs, round the spine, reach the arms up and overhead. If this causes the back any issues, then you may have to skip parts of this or come out early after just a moment and not hold so long. But if you don't have an excuse, then press up into the bricks, press up into the blanket. Imagine both are heavy. The hands stay on the floor, the feet stay on the floor, but there is a lot of activity pressing up. And, after a while, the abdominals will really start to respond with some shaking, possibly. Now breathe in. And then with the exhale, lift the hands off the floor, lift the head off the floor. They hover just above the ground, not too high, nothing else changes. The arms are still back unless you have reason. Arms are still back unless you have reason to bring them forward already. Arms are back behind you. You're just hovering above the ground. Good. Now take an inhale. And with the exhale, slide your arms forward. The legs are still straight and lift all ribs off the ground. The legs are still on the ground, legs are still on the ground. Guys, don't skip ahead. Not all of you have good reasons to come further. So you're still here, okay? I know. And then take an inhale. Then with the exhale, bend the knees and sit up. And then still press up into the props that are heavier than you think they are. Beautiful. Great. Nice. And then release all the way back down to the ground. Well done. Let's just move the props to the side so that you have space. We'll do a twist as a reward, I should say. So let's do a supine twist. Take your arms out at shoulder height. If your shoulders are vulnerable, take your arms further down. And then place your feet flat on the floor. Bring your legs together. The feet are on the floor next to each other. And then press your feet down. Lift the hips and shift the hips to the right edge of your mat. Bring the hips back down. And then drop the knees to the left side and hug the knees close up toward the left elbow or toward the left armpit. So we're basically just displacing the hips over to the right as we bring the knees over to the left. You can use your left hand to weigh the legs down. If you have a shoulder situation going on in the right shoulder, maybe you have your blanket handy and you can place it underneath the shoulder or underneath the upper arm for some support. And if in doubt, always keep that right arm down. The head could turn over to the right or the head could turn to the left, whatever feels better for the neck. And as we've displaced the hips to the right, now the spine is sort of parallel, you can imagine, with the outer edges of the mat. And this means that the twist is happening in the upper part of the spine. And this part is most receptive to twisting. And this is a great pose to be in if you have mild back pain or you're sitting for long periods of time. So I use this a lot when I'm on meditation retreat and, after sitting for hours and hours. And, you do vary it. You also do walking meditation, but still, you get achy after a few days. And this is a great pose. I stay in it for like 5 minutes at a time or something, and it can really make a difference to back pain, can really help with that. Now let's take the other side. Take an inhale and bring the legs to center. And then place your feet flat on the floor. Shift your hips to the center. Just take a moment here. Notice how you feel, how that feels having come out of the twist on that first side. And then for the second side, press your feet down, lift the hips, shift them over to the left edge of the mat, then drop the knees over to the right side. And again, hug the knees high. If you keep your knees pretty low, the twist will be directed more into the lower back, and the vertebrae there, they're not really cut out for rotation. They're designed for forward bending, back bending, that plane of mobility. And then find a comfortable position for the back shoulder, which is the left shoulder. Maybe it's supported somehow. Find a comfortable position for the neck. See where that wants to go. And sometimes there is a sense that we can sort of soften and release into gravity with this posture a little bit more. And again, if you do this on your own, you could just count breaths. And this is a great pose to do, in the evenings, to just release the back after a day of maybe a lot of sitting or, whatever your activity is. This is great to do this. You could time it or you could just count the breaths. I sometimes just count up to 25 on one side and then on the other side. And of course, if there are vulnerabilities, you would start with a less time or with a lower breath count, of course. It's also great for digestion. Any sort of twisting is really good for the digestive system. And then take an inhale and bring your legs back. Place your feet on the ground. Shift your hips to center. Just pause for a moment, just so you can feel. How is it right now, having come out of the twist on the second side? And then you could roll over to one side or rock up to sit, depending on what works best for you. And then set yourself up for an all fours position. And you may want a blanket underneath the knees. We'll be on all fours for a little while, so it can be nice to just have the luxury of a blanket. And we start with a simple cat-cow pose. So the knees are underneath the hips, the knees are hip distance, hands shoulder distance, fingers are spread. If the shoulders are very tight at the moment, take your hands wider, turn the fingers out a little bit. Tuck your toes under, and then take an inhale and tip the pelvis forward. Let the spine follow, and then reach the breastbone forward and draw the shoulders back. And then with the exhale, point your toes, tip the pelvis back, and again, let the spine follow the action until in the end, the head drops, the chin draws down toward the chest. And then start again. Tuck the toes under, tip the pelvis forward, and just let the back bend ripple through the spine sequentially. Keep the shoulders dropped, the shoulder blades descending down the back until eventually the throat opens, the chin reaches forward to touch, the gaze is down. And then with the exhale, pointing the toes, tipping the pelvis back. And of course, you can take, I'm going very slowly here, you can take as many extra breaths as you need to. We're just going slowly so that we can really feel into the sequential movement of the spine. And it's actually very difficult, at least for me, to move really sequentially. So quite often, a lot of things are moving together, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. We're just bringing some attention and playing with it a little bit. Take one more round. And then when you next inhale, come to a neutral spine and then stay here. So the wrists are underneath the shoulders. Exhale. With your next inhale, bend your elbows out to the sides, which might be a little odd. Keep your navel in. With the exhale, rotate the elbows back and in, and then re-extend the arms. Inhale, elbows out to the side, and you could do this as a very small movement. Exhale, elbows in and extend. If you feel strong, you take larger movements. Inhale, out to the side. Exhale, back, and then lift it back up. And you could just walk your hands on the spot for a moment. You could sort of think about pushing into the fingertips just as a little quick release. And then with an inhale, lift the right arm out to the side. And with the exhale, turn the head toward the right hand. And with the inhale, turn the head back down and then over to the left. And with the exhale, turn the head back down and then over to the right and keep the navel in. Inhale, head down and over to the left. So as we're doing this, there's a lot of shoulder stabilizing going on. And then exhale, head turns back to the right. And then press into the bottom hand. Inhale, lift the top shoulder. Can you float the top arm up a little bit more? And then with the exhale, let's take a twist. Take the right arm through behind the left wrist. You could stay on your forearm, or you could bring the shoulder and the side of the head to the ground and come onto the left fingertips. Draw your left hip back. So you want both hips to stay square. Again, directing the placing of the twist into the upper back. You could reach the left arm up if that feels more interesting. If that adds something to the twist, you could wrap around for a moment to free that left shoulder. And then as you next breathe in, take this as the beginning of the exit. With the exhale, release the left hand down. Press into the left flat hand. Let's retrace our steps. Inhale, reach the right arm out to the side. Now straighten your right leg behind you. Bring your sole of the right foot to the floor and bring the left foot behind you like a kickstand so that there is then a straight line from the right arm all the way down into the outer edge of the right foot. You could keep the gaze down, take an inhale here, make a soft fist with the top hand. Exhale, pull that hand down behind the head toward the shoulder, like you're pulling down something heavy. Inhale, reach the arm up and overhead. Imagine there's maybe a heavy weight on a string or something, and then exhale, pull that towards you, toward the shoulder. Inhale, reaching the right arm up and overhead, and exhale, pulling down. And then inhale, reaching the arm up and overhead. And with the exhale, release the right hand down and come all the way back to center. And you can sit back on your heels for a moment before we do all this on the other side. You can point the toes as you're sitting on the heels. You could also sit cross-legged. Interlace your fingers, separate the wrists, bend the elbows, and lift the arms away from the body. And you can move the head and then take an inhale, head is centered. And with the exhale, bring your hands over toward the left hip and press your elbows towards each other. Inhaling here. And then with the exhale, let the right ear dip toward the right shoulder. Keep your lower ribs down and in. So you're squeezing your elbows towards each other. You're keeping your lower ribs in, and you're getting that extra side stretch in the neck. And then with the inhale, lift the head. And with the exhale, release your arms. And then come back to your all fours position, placing the wrists underneath the armpits. And then with an inhale, lift the left arm out to the side. And with the exhale, turn the gaze toward the left hand. Inhale, turning the gaze over toward the right. Exhale down and then over to the left. So we're working with rotation. Inhale, gaze down and then over to the right. Exhale down and then over to the left. Press into the bottom hand. Inhale, lift the top shoulder, lift the arm higher. And then exhale, bring the forearm to the floor or slide further and bring the shoulder and the side of the head to the ground. Come onto the right fingertips. Now, just get a feel for the positioning of your pelvis. Adjust slightly so that you have a sense that both sides of the pelvis are as far back as one is as far back as the other one, essentially. If you wish to lift the right arm, you could. Freeing that shoulder, sliding the top shoulder head back. You could also wrap the arm around your back, reaching sort of toward the opposite thigh, but you don't have to get there, of course. And then with the inhale, you prepare, and as you exhale, the top hand comes down, pressing the right hand down. Inhale, lifting yourself back up. Left arm reaches out to the side, and then straighten the left leg. Take the right foot back behind you like a kickstand. I like to tuck my toes under. And then the left arm comes up and overhead, and the lower ribs come down a little bit so that you're not flaring the ribs and overarching into the lower back. So there is a sense of stability. And then with the inhale, make a soft fist with the top hand. And with the exhale, pull something heavy down behind your head toward the shoulder. And then with the inhale, you reach. And with the exhale, you pull. And with the inhale, you reach. And with the exhale, you pull down. Good. Inhale, reaching. And then with the exhale, release the hand down and swivel back onto all fours and then sit back, either choosing a kneeling pose if that works for you or choose a cross-legged position. Choose the unusual interlace behind your back. So just going one finger across, bend the elbows, move the hands up and away from you. And then so hands come to the right, you squeeze your elbows towards each other, and then the left ear comes to the left shoulder. And we're just enjoying this opening, that stretch there. Good. And then with an inhale, lift the head and release the hands and come back onto the hands and the knees. Now, similar to before, where with the elbows out wide, but this time we're going to aim to bring the forearms all the way to the floor. This may or may not work for you, so just see how you go. Inhale, elbows wide. Exhale, hug the elbows in, bring them down, and then lift back up. Inhaling, elbows wide. Exhale, forearms down, elbows in. Inhale, lift back up. In some ways, this is actually easier. Exhaling, wrap around, and then bring the forearms down. Now I'm going to stay with forearms down. You could keep the blanket as it is. We're going to come into a forearm dog. You could also remove the blanket. Now what we'll do can be a bit intense. You're very welcome to start from a downward dog with the elbows lifted and work with that. Otherwise, forearms down. Tuck the toes, lift the hips. Now we're going to move dynamically. Take an inhale, lift the right leg up. Exhale, look forward, lift the elbows, step the right foot forward. Inhale, lift the arms up, high lunge. Bend your elbows as if you're pulling something down behind your head. Exhale. Inhale, reach the arms up as if you're pulling down a bar behind the head with some weights attached. Exhaling. Inhale, arms up. Now exhale, hands down. You could simply keep the hands down, swing the right leg back, or forearms down, swing the right leg back. Inhale. Exhale, look forward, step forward, high lunge. Inhale. Exhale, pull down that heavy weight. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, pull down. Inhale, hands up. Exhale, hands down, forearms down as you swing the right leg up. Inhale. Exhale, look forward, step forward. So you skip the forearm part. Inhaling, reach arms. Last round. Exhale, pull down. Inhaling, arms up. Keep the lower ribs in. Exhale, pull down. Imagine this is heavy. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, hands down. Forearms down, swing the right leg back behind you. Breathe in. And then exhale, release, bring the right foot down. Take an inhale, bring the knees to the floor. And with the exhale, bring the elbows to the floor, walk them forward, lifting the forearms up. Touch your fingertips together, and then shift your hips back. Let the head hang, let the head come close to the floor. So before we do the second side, we just take a slight moment, a brief moment for a counter stretch here. So sitting bones shift back, and you're sort of the elbows are just held in place by the traction of the mat. And then lifting back up, and either work with forearms down or work with your hands flat. Lifting the hips. Take an inhale, lift the left leg. Exhale, look forward, step left foot forward, high lunge. Inhale. Exhale, pull this bar down behind the head. Inhale, lift up. Exhale, pull down. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, hands down. Swing the left leg back, forearms down. Inhale. Exhale, step the left foot forward as you lift the elbows. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, bend the elbows and pull down. Inhaling. So we're using power of imagination. Exhale, pull down. Great. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, take your hands down. Inhale, forearms down, swing the left leg back for the last round. Exhale, look forward, step forward, lift the elbows. Good. High lunge. Inhale. It's a hard one, this one. Exhaling. Inhale, lift. Exhale, pull down. Inhale, lift. Exhale, take your hands to the floor. Forearms down, inhale, swing the left leg back and up. Beautiful. Exhale, release the left foot down. And then bring the knees to the ground. And this time, we're going to take a side stretch. So similar to the release before, keep the hips over the line of the knees. Walk the hands over to the left. And then reach particularly through the right fingertips and think about sinking the right armpit toward the ground while keeping the right hip back and not in front of the left hip. You can make a fist with your left hand and place the fist underneath the forehead if the head comes that far down, or just let the head hover. So this is a pretty strong counter stretch for the shoulders. And then with the inhale, walk your hands to center. And with the exhale, walk the hands all the way over to the right. And reach particularly through the left fingertips. Think about letting the left elbow coming further down toward the ground. You can use support with the support of the forehead with the right hand, making a fist maybe to bring the floor up to you a little bit more. Keep that left hip back so the left hip actively moves back. Good. And then with the inhale, walk your hands back to center. And with the exhale, release your forearms to the ground. Not much more to go here on the forearm front, don't worry. Take an inhale and straighten your legs so you're in a forearm plank. Have your feet pretty wide. And then exhale, drop your heels over to the right. Inhale, come back to center. Exhale, drop the heels to the left. So the feet are in front of each other. Inhale, come back. Exhale, release your hips down so you're in a Sphinx pose. Now roll onto your right side, so the outer right leg. Bend your knees and bring the knees closer. And you can work in this way pressing the right forearm down, lifting the side of the rib cage away from the ground. Take the left hand behind your head. Take an inhale, lift the elbow, keep your lower ribs in. Exhale, round the spine and point the elbow to the ground. Inhale, lifting back up. Now stay with this, stay exactly here as you are and continue with this movement, or do the same movement but straighten out your legs and lift the hips. Now with the inhale, everyone, lift the elbow up, and with the exhale, rotate the elbow down, rounding the spine a bit. Inhale, lifting up. Exhale, rotating down, hugging in. One more time. Inhale, lifting up. And exhale, rotating down. Good. Inhale to lift up. And then with the exhale, bring the forearm down and come into a Sphinx pose. Bring your hips down. Great. Then roll to the other side. Let's do just a check with the initial version just to see whether we prefer it for the side. So bend your knees, hug them forward and up a little bit more. Really firmly press into your left forearm so there's activity there. And then with an inhale, lift the right hand behind the head and you turn over to the right. And with the exhale, you turn the elbow down and you round in. And then you can lift the elbow and you can stay in exactly the same shape or straighten your legs, have your feet in front of each other just for some added balance. Of course, you can stack your feet on top of each other if you want to work really hard. Lift your hips and then inhale, elbow up. Exhale, round in. Press the forearm down, inhale, elbow up, really lift yourself away from the ground. Exhale, rounding in. So you're really lifting out of the bottom shoulder. Inhale, open the elbow up. Exhale, elbow down, rounding in. And then inhale, lift the elbow. And with the exhale, release the hand down. Come onto your belly. Good. Release the forehead down for a moment. Great. Lovely. If your pubic bones are sensitive, we're going to stay lying in this prone position for a little while now. You could place a blanket underneath the pubic bones. That might feel nicer. If you feel okay where you are, then that's fine. Now, take the forehead to the floor. Take the arms by your side so that the fingers point back behind you. Now, the key here is, we often lift the chest and the head here, which is great, and we strengthen the back muscles, and we will do something along those lines in a moment. But for now, I would like you to not use your back muscles at all, and instead use the shoulders, the rotator cuff muscles, and use your neck muscles. So stay pretty low, but lift the head off the ground, shoulders are off the ground, lifting the shoulders up a little bit higher. Then with the inhale, draw the chin in like a triple, quadruple chin. Lift the head a little higher without using the back muscles. Exhale, soften down. Inhale, lifting the chin in, lifting the head a little higher. Check that you're not using the back muscles. Exhale, soften down. Once more like this. Inhale, drawing the chin in to lift the head higher. Exhale, soften down. And then pause for a moment. Personally, I like to or prefer to pause with my chin on the floor rather than the forehead on the floor, but if forehead works for you, then that's absolutely fine. Now we're going to go for the same action of lifting the head without use of the back muscles, and then we're going to rotate the neck side to side. So we're going to go for a neck rotation. So with the inhale, shoulders lift, head lifts. Exhale, look to the left. Inhale, turn the head down, face to floor. Exhale, face to the right. Inhale, face to the floor. Exhale to the left. Inhale to the floor. And exhale to the right. Inhale to the floor. Exhale, release your forehead down or release your chin down. Pause. Next thing we're going to do is lateral flexion, which means we're going to bring the ear toward the shoulder. So with the inhale, draw the chin in so the head floats. And then exhale, left ear to left shoulder. Inhale, come back to center. So this is often the hardest to isolate it to just the lateral flexion. Exhale, right ear to right shoulder. Inhale, coming up. Or to center, I should say. Exhale, left ear, left shoulder. Inhale to center. Exhale, right ear, right shoulder. Inhaling to center. And then take a brief pause. So now we are going to shift into a more common way of using the back muscles, activating the lower back muscles, the erector spinae muscles, and the muscles around. And we will come up a little bit higher, and you have the option to also lift your legs off the floor, but you can keep them down if you prefer. So take an inhale and lift the arms, lift the chest, come up a little bit higher now. And then exhale, reaching the arms forward, bring the hands behind the head, tuck the chin in a little bit. Inhale, circle the arms all the way back, turn the palms up, and then bring the hands above the lower back. And then continue to breathe. You could inhale forward, hands behind head. You could exhale, arms back, hands on top of each other on the lower back. And continue to move the arms and try not to touch any part of the body other than hands touching each other. And we'll try and do this for a few more rounds, and it's going to get, pretty strong at some stage, but try and go for a little longer than you probably want to. So think about just the beauty of swimming in space, completely unrestricted. Let's take about 3 more rounds. Good, lovely. Let's maybe have one more here. And then take the hands underneath the forehead, release the forehead down onto your hands for a moment. Soften, relax completely. And then slip the hands underneath the shoulders so that you can press up to sit and grab your belt or your scarf or whatever you have for that sort of part. If you don't have anything, grab a piece of clothing. So I'm using a scarf. The main thing is it's useful if it's not stretchy, but if what you have is stretchy, then that's fine. Now, whatever you have is going to come to the base of the skull. And the aim is to pull up a little bit at all times and also press the head back into the scarf. And we come back to a supine position for that. So lie down, have your head pretty close to the floor, have your elbows probably just outside of the mat, and then you're holding the scarf. So elbows are, just outside of the mat. The head is hovering. You're sort of pulling the scarf apart a bit. You're pulling up a little bit to lengthen the neck, and then take the scarf side to side, keeping the head centered. Like you want to give yourself a little massage. And what often happens, just like last time, it messes up your hair. And let's just go with that. So again, you don't have to lift the head high. And then eventually release, bring the hands down underneath the forehead. Relax for a moment. And we're going to essentially do the same thing, but this time, rather than moving the scarf, we're going to move the head. So elbows wide, just outside of the mat. Hold on to whatever you have. Pull up a little bit to lengthen the neck. The head just hovers above the ground. Now turn the head side to side. And you probably get an extra ear stretch out of that. So see how that feels. This is sort of unintentional but unavoidable at the same time. So you're just turning the head side to side. You keep the elbows on the floor. You keep the hands pretty static, going side to side. And again, you want to try and avoid using the back muscles. We're aiming for rotator cuff muscles and then the deep neck flexors and the muscles of the throat, the neck flexors and the neck extensors. Good. And then come to center. Now reach your arms out in front of you, still holding the belt, and then pull the belt apart, lift the chest up a little bit higher. So you're now in back strengthening mode again, just for the last few breaths, really pulling the belt apart. Good. Lovely. And then exhale, release. So we're going to bring the head to the floor. And what we'll do, if you have a belt, it may not work as well, but if you have a scarf or something softer, bunch it up a little bit. And we're going to lie on our front with that something underneath the right ear. So what that does is it makes the rotation of the head much less severe. So the chin is pointing down a little bit, the ear is elevated, and you're basically creating a wedge. And then I quite like to release my right arm back by my side and have the left hand forward next to my temple, essentially. So the left elbow out to the side, but this is just one of many ways of doing this. I just like it for the right shoulder because the right shoulder softens here. Now stay here, or if you just want to see what it feels like, remove that padding underneath the ear, and that will make the neck stretch a lot stronger. So you could check that out. And if that's too much for the neck, then go back to the previous. So I'm a belly sleeper personally. It took me many, many years to be able to sleep without damaging my neck. I mean, of course, in the early years, it was not a problem because I could do everything with my body. But then, recently I had to be much more attentive and adapt. And, propping the head is really essential if you do rest on your belly, if this is something that you enjoy. Now, swap to the other side, and again, start with the padding. So you're turning the head to the right side, so you place something underneath the left ear so that the face sort of points down, and you could take the left arm by your side and the right hand up, and you're sort of looking toward that arm that is higher up. And see if you can just release into gravity, soften, relax into gravity. Great. And if you would like to remove the padding, then you could try. If it felt very intense on the first side, maybe there is no need to try it out on the side. So, but sometimes after a while, we open up to a deeper stretch. Right. And then to bring yourself out of this, you could gather the hands underneath the shoulders and then press up from there. And depending on what props you have, we're going to go for a supported bridge pose. So we're going to place a prop of some description underneath the sacrum, right at the base of the spine. So you could have a brick, you could have a few books. If you don't have books or bricks and you have your cans of something, you may want to stack the cans next to each other or place the cans next to each other. You can't do that yet. You have to do it while you're sort of already on the ground. And then maybe drape a blanket above that. So you'd have to sort of shuffle that all under a little bit to make it more comfortable because the edges of the cans obviously will be pretty sharp. So with a brick or books, you might not necessarily need the blanket, at least not now. So we'll start with the heels reasonably close to the sitting bones, the feet parallel. And of course, you could go for a very low prop, which could just be, one thick book. You could go for a higher prop. You could go for the highest prop that you have available and still feels comfortable. And we want to stay here for a little moment. So I know that I'm actually quite comfortable on the highest setting brick. And it's okay to lift your heels up to place the prop. But then once you have placed your sacrum on the prop, you want to be able to relax the heels down. You want to be able to actually relax into the pose. And if that's not possible, if you know that there's quite a lot of internal holding on going on because it's quite strong, then soften and go for a lower prop. So you want to be able to keep your legs reasonably parallel, and you want to make sure that the prop is sort of in the center of your sacrum and the weight is evenly distributed. So, if you have a stack of books, this is actually a great base. If you happen to have two bricks, you could stack them on top of each other. Even if you go for quite a high support, you could go for a wide support, and this can feel nicer to many people. And then reach your arms up and overhead. And if this is too strong, then take the arms back down by your side. If this is okay, hold on to your elbows. Or you could just see what it feels like to straighten the arms and you're sort of crossing your wrists so your palms touch, but your wrists are crossed. Personally, I prefer holding on to the elbows, or not even holding on, but getting in that place and then letting the arms relax down. And then soften, release into gravity, relax into the posture. So we want to be able to stay here for a while. So the next few postures we'll do, not all of them, but most of them, will stay in for a while and we go for a release. So we've done a lot of strengthening, we've done a lot of stabilizing work. Now this is the releasing, sending the message to the nervous system that muscles don't need to engage anymore, that tension can be released. And this is a process that is gradual, it happens over time, so it's beneficial to stay with it for a little while. Of course, you're very welcome to come out of a posture early, always. You are the only person who knows how it feels to be in this shape, so you can make adjustments yourself. If you are holding on to your elbows or in that sort of region, then swap your arms around so that the other forearm is above or in front. And if it feels comfortable, close your eyes. And see if you can just relax the whole body. And sometimes that takes time. It even takes some courage to just let go of holding on, let go of wanting to control this. So you may notice after a little while, maybe there are some internal layers that have softened and become a little more receptive to releasing tension. You may also notice that there are layers that hold tension that don't want to release, and that's okay. It's interesting to observe that. And I'm going to leave you here for about 5 more breaths. These are my breaths, so your breaths might be a different pace. So just continue to breathe. And then to come out of this, activate your leg muscles. Feel the contact of the feet into the ground, the even pressure, base of the big toe, base of the little toe, center of the heel. Press down. You could use pressure of the arms down, taking the arms by your side if that's helpful. Lift the hips, remove the props, and then slowly, vertebra by vertebra, like we did in the beginning, imagine a thumbnail sliding down from the top of the spine to the bottom as the vertebrae come down. And then take the arms down by your side, and you can sit up if you want to watch me, but for many of you, it'll be probably clear without sitting up because we'll stay in the same position, lying on the ground. Lift your legs up toward the ceiling and activate your legs. They don't have to be entirely straight, but a sense of reaching up through the tiptoes. And the palms are down, the arms by your side. Now, activating your abdominals. This is a bit of a counterpose to having just been in this back bend. Curl the tailbone, the lower back, the mid back off the ground. Lift your hips a touch and then come back down. And you could synchronize this with a breath. So with an inhale and go slowly. Curl up, and with the exhale, come down. So there is nowhere far to go here. It's in the small movements. Inhale, curling in. It's like you're giving your lower back and the mid back a little massage, but the upper back stays on the ground the whole time. And again, like we did with the abdominal work, if that doesn't work for your back, then obviously you don't do it. You could just stay with the legs floating up toward the ceiling. And otherwise, a couple more rounds, lifting and lowering. So we don't use momentum, we use the strength of the body. Good, nice. And then releasing the feet down, roll over to one side, make your way up to sit. Now, if you have spinal injuries or conditions going on, the next two are pretty intense and may well not be for you. You can always come back to the supported bridge pose, maybe go for a softer support. You could use a few cushions. You could use a bolster if you have a bolster instead of the brick, instead of whatever you had just now when we held it for a longer time. So I'll show you this first. So you need something that replicates this brick, which could be your cans of tomatoes stacked behind each other like this, and then the blanket comes on top. If you have books, you can see how it works and what height you want to go for might not be so suitable. something narrow is really best, but it also needs to be soft enough because otherwise it's just too intense. And then your belt or a scarf or whatever you have comes in front of it, and you don't need that yet, but you may choose to use it later, so you can already place it there. So watch me first. This part here comes between the shoulder blades, and you support your head with your hands so that you can control how that all works out. So you can start with your feet flat on the floor. You come back, and you might have to shuffle about a little bit to get this in the right spot. And it may feel like, definitely, I'm not going to go there. Then lower your prop, okay? And also, it gets better after a little while. At least that's what I find. Then you hold on to your head. You interlace your hands behind the head, and the elbows are sort of, you see where it feels best, up or out to the side. And then you're going to straighten the legs here. And what really helps is to imagine that you have something quite heavy weighing your shins down, and you press up into it, and that makes the intensity of the stretch more bearable, and it protects the lower back. So get into position. And if this is not for you, if this doesn't work with spinal conditions you have, you could simply lie on your back and float the legs up, or go for a pretty low support. You could have just a small blanket roll and place that underneath the shoulder blades. And otherwise, you're reclining over this prop. And even if you think, oh, no, this is intense, give it maybe 2, 3 breaths before you choose to make a change, because it can change after a moment. So hands are supporting the head, legs are straight, legs are together. Press your ankles up into an imaginary weight, and notice how that changes things. So everything becomes much more active then. And, when I did this the first time, I was like, okay, this is crazy. But now I actually really like it, despite its, let's say, intensity. But I find it actually quite useful. But it's also useful to approach this with care and to start slow and build up. So we'll stay here for a few more breaths, but if you feel quite ready to come out, then please go for it. Listen to your body. Come out now, tucking the chin in, curling yourself in to come up and out of this. And otherwise, just last few breaths, pressing your ankles up into a heavy weight. And then tuck the chin in, hug your elbows closer to the head, round up and come back up to sit. And then just sit for a moment, releasing the hands down, relaxing the hands, and notice how it feels now. And then again, notice how it feels after a little while. And that might help you to choose the next option. So you could do something a lot softer. Remember, maybe a rolled blanket underneath the shoulder blades, and it could be just a small roll. The rest of the blanket could be used underneath the head. You could do the same thing one more time, and you can stay as long as is okay for you, which may not be very long at all. Or if that feels, at least now it feels like, whoa, this was intense, but sort of, okay, this has really opened something up. This is sort of interesting. If that's you, which may well not be the case, then you can proceed to the next. And the next one, watch me first, is exactly the same setup, but once we're ready to come down, we reach for our belt or whatever we have, and we reach the arms up overhead and let the head come down, and we pull the belt away to straighten the arms. And it's sort of quite hard to talk here, to be honest. Your voice just completely goes. So this is much more intense. I have a little, my blanket is quite thick, so there's a little padding going on there for the back of my head, actually, just because I've draped the blanket across. that may or may not be the case for you, but a thick blanket is definitely good for this. Also helps with the sharpness of whatever prop you're using. So if you're going for this, this is a much, much more intense stretch. The arms come overhead, the arms lengthen. You may certainly not want to stay as long as on the first side. So if you're happy to give it a try, go for it. Otherwise, repeat what we've already done, either just the last thing we've done or something that was a bit more gentle, like something underneath the sacrum. If you have questions, if you're not sure what to do, please do let me know. And if your arms are overhead, straighten the arms a little bit more if you can. Pull the belt away from you. If you have, I mean, if you have a long enough belt, that is. And it's probably time to come out of this soon. And to come out of this, release the arms down by your side first. Curl your chin in, around your spine, come up. And then shift the props out of the way and lie on your back. And you can place your feet flat on the floor or keep your legs straight. Just feel, how does it feel? How does the spine feel? The muscles around the shoulders, how do the shoulders feel? The whole upper part of the back, the lower part of the back, how does all of that feel right now? And this is useful information, and it's worth checking in again after a little while. And if after a little while the message you're getting is still, whoa, this was too intense, rather than, oh, this was sort of interesting, then don't stay as long next time or skip it altogether. So we're going to take a front lying Shavasana today, if that works for you, lying on the belly. So you can take your blanket, so make your way up to sit slowly so that you can arrange your props. So taking your blanket and folding it up, you probably want to fold it quite a few times. It's quite, having it quite high. If you have a bolster, then the next thing is the bolster. Your torso is going to come over the bolster. If you don't have a bolster, you could roll up a blanket. If you have another spare blanket, roll that around the blanket so that you're making something that starts to resemble the shape of the bolster. You can use cushions, etc. If you have another spare blanket, probably not, you can use this for your ankles. Otherwise, you can use whatever you used for the bricks, which is not as comfortable, but will probably work to some extent. You can try it out. So you have to sort of adjust the positions of all of these props. So the pubic bone is going to come to the end of the bolster, and then you're going to drape across. So you want this to be, so the ankle props have to be quite far back actually. Pubic bone comes down so that the pelvis is almost neutral, but the tailbone has a sort of slight downward trajectory. And at that stage, I mean, if you had someone to place the props for you, it would be much better. At that stage, you want the props to be underneath your ankles so that the legs can really relax. And then you grab the blanket and you can obviously adjust the height of the blanket. And I have to come forward just a little bit more to make this work. And the blanket really needs to be folded up pretty high. So if you have cushions instead, you can use cushions instead. So this comes underneath the forehead so that the nose is completely free. The rest of the face just hovers in space. And the arms are by your side so that the shoulders can sort of drape around the bolster or whatever you're using for it, particularly over time. And I have really sensitive skin, so personally, I would remove the bricks from underneath my ankles because it actually hurts more than it feels beneficial. You can also, for the ankle support, use a rolled up mat, but then you'd need something else to support the knees. So, you can try that out with more props another time, but this can be a really lovely restorative posture and a good alternative to Shavasana. And then the eyes can be soft, gaze soft, or maybe the eyes close completely, and check in again. Is it possible at all to soften the shoulders just a little bit more? The facial muscles, the neck. Maybe a sense that there is a sort of inner disentangling, a sort of inner letting go of tension to whatever extent that is possible right now. So this sort of ungripping, ungrasping, that can happen. And really taking the awareness through the whole back body. We've worked a lot with spinal mobility, stability of the muscles around the spine, creating strength there, creating strength in the front body. So really giving particular attention, sort of caring, gentle attention to that whole area, all the way up to the shoulders, and inviting this softening, this inner disentangling. And then maybe in the end, there are a few slightly deeper breaths. And eventually a gathering of the hands underneath the shoulders, either side of whatever prop you're using. And then press yourself back into a brief child's pose. You can push the props underneath the ankles back if that's helpful. Just shifting back for a moment, shifting the sitting bones back toward the heels. And then lift up to sit. You could sit in a kneeling pose for a moment, or of course, get the legs out in front of you, change your position, and just resting the hand on the body or both hands if that feels comfortable. Just acknowledging, how are you feeling now? Just checking in, how am I feeling now? The body, the heart, and the mind, just so you know, not to judge, just so you know. Breathing in. And with the exhale, release the chin down toward the chest.